Turn off the lights. Lock the door. It's time to talk about love and sex. We're gonna chant, moan, laugh, and dance. Connect with God, reality, and each other. Withhold ejaculation. Love a little larger. Last a little longer. Open your ears and let your mind and body sing with today's sexy, loving, tantric guest, Jamie Ananda McConochie.
There are so many potential topics for us to talk about today. Some of them that I'm excited about are the use of sound, vision, movement, sex, dating. There's all kinds of fun stuff. But before we go there, let's do a little story time with Jamie and talk about leading up to your time in the monastery. You spent 11 years in a Hindu monastery as a monk. So talk about the time that kind of led up to that. Why the heck did you join that? And then the actual world, the life of being there, sort of paint the picture of what this place was like, what your life was like. And then the third part would be your re-entry back into the outside world. I guess I should separate this into three questions. But yeah, so the pre-monastery, the monastery, post-monastery. That's a massive question. Go ahead. Welcome to Brain Shaman.
Yeah, hey Michael, thanks for inviting me on. It's a real pleasure. I'm really looking forward to this conversation. Those are obviously very big questions. I'll try to keep it fairly succinct and brief as possible. So the first part was like, I guess what drew me to joining the monastery. And I mean, it goes back really. It's kind of like a life story. I'm not going to give the whole thing, but it starts off when I'm very young. Basically, I'm at a very young age. I'm super interested in spiritual things, paranormal things. Everything that's not of this world, so to speak, from a very young age. And then a turning point happened when I was about 15, and I found this old book. It was a fantastic story. I'll just give you very, very quickly. I went into this old bookstore. I was looking for books on parapsychology and the paranormal and things like that. And way, way, way up at the top of this old bookshelf, it's like a scene from Harry Potter, where he goes into those old shops looking for magic books. And there was this old dusty book at the top that I couldn't see what the title was or anything. And I was just drawn to it. And I kind of reached up and pulled it off. And it was an old book. I blew the dust off it, just like in Harry Potter. And it turned out to be a book on yoga philosophy, written around about 100 years ago, I think. And I was fascinated by it, and I was really drawn into it. And in a way, that book was kind of like a reawakening of like early or previous life memories. It was like memories of a previous spiritual path in India and yoga philosophy and stuff like that. And I was just reading all this stuff, and it was just clicking immediately. It's just like, yes. I was like, this is exactly, it's like memories coming back of this stuff. And at that moment, in that point, I felt like my young childhood years up to that point, I had finally refound my path, my spiritual path, which had spanned many lifetimes, basically. And it was like, okay, and here today in this bookshop, I'm being pulled back onto the path that I've been following for thousands of years, really. And so anyway, after that, I got more and more into yoga philosophy, meditation, and I was reading some of the classic scriptures like the Bhagavad Gita, the Vedas, and things like that. And then I went to university, and while I was at university, I got into a meditation group. And the guy who leads the meditation group told me about a monastery that was in Wales. At the time I was in London in university, and I was very curious about it. He said there was a guru there, and he has this kind of Hindu multi-faith monastery. And I was fascinated by it, and I thought I'd go and visit there one day. And I went up there for a weekend with a couple of friends. And it was amazing experience. I hadn't, up to now, I had read a lot of stuff and I'd done like meditation, but I had never really got involved or experienced real sort of Hindu ceremonies, and they call them pujas. Puja is the word for a Hindu ceremony, and the chanting. I'd never really got into the chanting up to that point. So I turned up at this monastery one weekend, and it was in the middle of winter, and we arrived late at night. It was dark. So couldn't really see what the place was like when we arrived there. One of the monks greeted us and showed us to accommodation. It was very basic accommodation, really quite rough, like wooden cabins, and you had to sort of like bundle up in your sleeping bag. And yeah, it's freezing cold. It was like 0 degrees at that time of the year. And the monk was telling us the rules of the monastery while you're staying there. And you had to get up early and go to the 5 a.m. morning service, the morning puja. So I said, okay, fine. And so I went to bed, and I set my alarm, woke up early, about 4:30 in the morning. I was like super sleepy and freezing cold. I was like sleeping with my woolly hat on. And then I sort of like got up and like grumpily went down to the temple and sort of half sleepily sort of stumbled into the temple there. And it was hadn't started, the service hadn't started yet, so everybody had to just sit down on the floor, Hindu style, cross-legged on the floor, and we were just waiting until the service started. And then the service started. They have these curtains at the front where the inner sanctum is. So they open up the curtains of the inner sanctum, and then everybody stands up. And the monks, the swamis, they then start the puja. They start the service. And the way they start, it's pretty incredible. It's very noisy, dynamic. There's a lot of chanting and ringing loud bells. And they blow this conch, it sounds like a trumpet. It's a conch shell, and they blow this. So there's all this like cacophony of noise and bells and stuff. And I had never ever like heard anything like that before. And when it started, that was my first, experience of the temple. Immediately in that instant when it started, something in my brain just kind of switched on, like a dormant memory just lit up in my brain, and it lit up like the whole of my brain, like all my neurons and everything. I just felt like I was like this clear memory of like, I was thinking, oh my God, I've done this before. I've done like the chants, the bells, the ceremony, everything seemed so familiar to me. But I mean, in this life, I had never done that before. I'd never been to any of those kind of ceremonies before, but it just felt like I just had this strong memory of like, oh my God, I've done this before somewhere. I don't know where, but it's all so familiar to me. And from that moment, immediately, I felt like, well, gosh, this is like coming home here in this monastery. And I was like, I don't want anything else. I was like, I just want this. And that was my first moment in the monastery. It then took a bit of time before I actually joined the monastery, because I remember I met the guru the next day, and he told me, like, I had a chat with him, and I was saying like, I'm studying at university. I'm studying psychology in London, but I'd really like to come and just join your monastery here. And he told me, like, first finish your studies and then think about it. He was quite a responsible guy, He wasn't just like drop out and come and join us. Now he was like, you finish your university studies and then you can see if you want to join here. So it was then another couple of years, and then I would come regularly and visit the monastery at weekends and stuff. And then when I finally finished my university studies, a couple of years later, I went there, and I joined. I had to split up with my girlfriend at the time. That was a that was a challenge, but it was like I just felt like I didn't want anything else in the world. Nothing really gave me that fulfillment except that feeling of the presence and the power of God that I could feel in the monastery. So that was it. I joined, and it was a 2-year novitiate. So 2 years that you kind of try out the lifestyle and to decide if it's for you or not. And then after that, you take vows, which are the lifetime vows. So that kind of is the first question, I suppose, that you were asking about how I ended up there. And so then after that, I obviously stayed there. I was there for 11 years. My vows were lifetime vows. So I had chosen to stay there for the rest of my life. But I did get to a point after about 10 years. And by then, so I joined when I was about 21, I think. So by the time I was about 31 or 32, I was starting to question my life, basically. I was starting to have doubts about whether or not I should stay and continue in the monastery. I started to have a lot of dreams and feelings about things that I would like to do with my life that I couldn't do in the monastery, like falling in love, having a girlfriend, and traveling and doing all sorts of things, basically, like all the kind of things you can't just do if you live in a monastery. And so then I went through this whole process of like an internal process of trying to figure out if I should stay in the monastery or if I should go. And this process went on for about 2 or 3 years, I think. And I would go to my guru and the senior swamis. Every now and then I'd go to them and say, look, guru, I think I want to leave now. And then he would talk to me and say, okay, why? Why do you want to leave? Remember why you joined. And then he would say, like, why don't you give it a bit more time and just like, because it's quite normal for monks and people on the spiritual path to go through this kind of, questioning and doubts and stuff. That's a normal part of the spiritual path. So he said, like, just give it some more time. And then I'd give it some time. And then eventually I'd come back again and say, look, I'm really struggling. And this went on for 2 or 3 years. And eventually they said, the senior swamis said to me, so look, it's pretty clear that you're not really able to focus on your spiritual life here in the monastery. And I wasn't able to focus. I was struggling with living that monastic life, and I couldn't focus. My mind wasn't settled, and it kind of got to the point where it was kind of counterproductive for me to stay there. So they said, look, it's probably better that you follow your dreams and follow what's calling you. Your spirit is calling you to go out into the outside world. So do it. And so I left kind of with the blessing, with the monastery's blessing, and out into the outside world. And then that began my next phase of my life in the outside world. And that's a whole nother story. Probably take up a whole nother podcast episode, actually.
Yeah, but I have this favorite book. It's called Narcissism Goldman by Hermann Hesse. And this sounds just like his story. So I always want to hear a new version of it.
All right.
Yeah, let's go back to you said you were struggling in the monastery. What were you struggling with specifically? Let's start with that before we go outside.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, the thing is, I think there were several things I was struggling with. On one hand, it was a very tough lifestyle. And even though I'd been doing it for like 10, 11 years, it was still tough, even after all that time. This is quite a sort of strict regime where you have to get up before 5 o'clock in the morning. You have to go. I think they had like 5 services throughout the day, 5 pujas that you go to, and in between the pujas, you're doing quite heavy physical work. The whole place was basically like a farm, because they rescued animals from slaughter, so it's like an animal sanctuary. And so there were a lot of animals to look after. So a bit like working on a farm. And so there's a lot of physical labor kind of work to do, lots of building. And I used to make fences. I would look after the deer. There was a herd of deer there. That was my main job. I also had to muck out the bulls. There were bulls there. And so that was quite a hard job. And there were tough moments. I remember many a time, like, in sub-zero temperatures, having to push a wheelbarrow of dung, of cow dung, up a steep dung heap that was all slippery and icy. And on more than one occasion, I would slip and go face down into the cow shit.
Well, at least there wasn't a wheelbarrow of cow semen.
Yeah, that would have been certainly a lot worse. Yeah.
Slipping on that.
Exactly. So these moments. There were lots of these kind of moments, and times when I'd be feeding the deer. Sometimes we'd give them rice that was left over, and the rice was frozen rock solid, and I had to dig my fingers into it and break it up, and times when in the middle of the night there'd be a storm or a snowstorm, and you'd have to go out and in the middle of the night into the fields and fix the shelters for the animals. And so this is sort of quite a harsh way of life, and often it was often busy. Like during the summer season, there were a lot of visitors coming to the temple, a lot of pilgrims, and you often wouldn't get to bed until like midnight or 1 o'clock, sometimes 2 o'clock in the morning, and then you'd have to be up at 4:30 again the next day. So it was quite a punishing routine, and I think that just wears you down over the years. And if you've got like the true passion for why you're there, then you can get through it. And there were monks there. I mean, there still are monks there who've been there for like 50 years, all their life basically. So that in itself was quite tough. And then I had the struggles of like basically wanting to do different things in the outside world. I was quite young when I joined the monastery, so I hadn't seen a lot of the world. I had traveled to India, but apart from that, I hadn't really seen much of the world. And I had, before I joined the monastery, I had only had like maybe 2 girlfriends. So I had also that feeling of like wanting to know more about love and intimacy. So these things were growing inside me, and it was making it hard for me to cope with the difficult demands of the way of life. And that was essentially it was that really.
And then you left the monastery, you went into the outside world, and you started getting into tantra. And currently you have a podcast, The Tantric Life. You have a tantra dating website, utantra.com. What is the tantric view of reality, and how does that compare with the view of reality that you were taught there in the monastery?
Yeah, well, that's a really nice question, because the beauty of tantra is that the essence of tantra is this view that everything in our experience, like everything in the world, every part of our human experience is a part of the nature of the divine. So everything is divine, and everything has the potential to help you grow spiritually, which is different from many other traditions where they kind of separate human emotions and feelings from spiritual experience. But Tantra doesn't do that. Tantra teaches that we can be humans. We can have our human experiences and feelings. We can enjoy the ups and downs of life, pleasure as well as the struggles, and still have a spiritual experience and still awaken to our divine connection. That's the essence of Tantra. And yeah, I was drawn to it because there's this idea in Tantra that you don't have to separate sex from spirituality, right? Sex is an important part of Tantra, although it's only a small part of really Tantra philosophy, but it is part of Tantra. And so I always had this feeling that, I as a spiritual person, I have a strong calling for spirituality, for the divine, but I also have, or maybe slightly less now, but I have a libido, like a sexual desire, and perhaps when I was younger it was stronger, but it's still there, it's still there, and I think everybody does.
Yeah.
And one of the things about being on the spiritual path is this whole idea of Kundalini. As you're on a spiritual path, you're kind of awakening Kundalini energy inside you, and Kundalini itself activates a lot of sexual energy. So it's for people who are trying to separate spirituality from sexuality, it creates an awful conflict because they feel very sexual, but they want spirituality. So they get this conflict going on in their head. And Tantra allows you to merge those together because your sexual energy is more than just sex energy. It's creative energy. So it's the energy of enlightenment and liberation and awakening. And you can work with that sexual energy as part of your spiritual practice. So that's the beauty of Tantra. And that's why I was drawn to it, because I didn't want to repress my sexual feelings. I didn't want to try and disconnect myself from sexuality in order to experience God. And Tantra is an ideal framework and philosophy for bringing those two together. And then the other part of your question, so how did that relate to what I learned in the monastery? Well, for me, it was a fascinating thing because my guru taught, when I discovered Tantra, I realized that my guru was teaching essentially Tantra philosophy, but he never used the word Tantra. He never called himself a Tantra teacher. He avoided any kind of labels about what kind of philosophy he teaches. He tried to keep things simple when it came to spirituality. He just said, like, you don't need to have complicated terminology to experience God. He would teach, you just need love, you just need dedication, and he would also teach, like, to us monks as well as to the non-monastic people who would come to visit. He would teach that sexuality is not something to fear or something to repress, and he wasn't. We still, as monks, we still had to learn to conserve sexual energy. We had to practice as much as we could, semen retention and channeling sexual energy as monks. But my guru didn't really teach that exclusively. He said, like, find that in your own way. He tried to encourage us to not lose our sexual energy, but he said, it's not an easy thing, and you have to find your own way with how you work with that. And essentially, in the way of life in the monastery was this idea that if you if you work physically hard and you're creative, you kind of use up that sexual energy. So you kind of you're channeling that sexual energy. So you don't end up being sexually frustrated, because that energy is being healthily channeled into other outlets. So we did a lot of, building and creating things. Physical building. You build a fence, or you build a shelter. You're creating and you're using physical energy. And at the end of the day, when you go to bed, you are basically too exhausted to think about like masturbating or anything. That's how you used up your sexual energy as a monk. You just used up all the energy, and you were too tired to think about sex. That was the monastic path. In the outside world, or for people who are non-monastics, there is a similar process, but you can obviously you can make love, you can have sex, and tantra has some techniques and some teachings to like concepts where you can use some of that lovemaking to channel that energy towards a divine experience, towards expanding your consciousness. So when I got into tantra, I kind of realized, well, gosh, this is more or less what my guru had been like teaching us as monks. It's just that he hadn't really used the terminology of tantra. And so now I found tantra to be a very nice philosophy, like a framework, really, a very practical framework that's very, very ideal for the modern world. It's great for modern people who have relationships or have families, or people who don't want to be a monk, people who don't want to be celibate, but they want to be spiritual. And tantra is a great way of doing that.
Okay, I do want to get into some of these ways we can use sex and masturbation to basically improve our mood, our emotions, our life. But there are a few things I'm even more excited to talk about, and I do not want to miss. In particular, sound, and also vision and touch. But let's start with sound. And now you're like, whoa, I was trying to talk about sex. Now you're bringing us over here. But when you were in the monastery, you did a lot of chanting, and you still seem to do a lot of chanting. I don't know if that's related to tantra or just something you do. But tell us about the value of chanting and how we can use it in different ways to change our physiology in our brain.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's amazing. Chanting is amazing. I discovered when I went to the monastery, I discovered that for me, chanting, it was a much more powerful and easy practice than like traditional meditation. Before I joined the monastery, I used to do a lot of traditional meditation where you sit silently and focus your one-pointed focus on some image or on a chakra or something like this, and you try to just hold your mind on that. And I found that incredibly difficult. Some people find it easier. It kind of just depends on what kind of mind or what kind of brain you have, I suppose. But I could never keep my mind still in that kind of meditation. But with chanting, and especially when the chanting is accompanied by music, it becomes, for me, almost effortless to like connect with divine consciousness. And it's just the chanting, the sound, the music, it's easy to just like lose yourself. And that's a good expression, because you do literally lose your egoic identity in that moment. You become absorbed with the sound and the music. Or if it's like a puja where they're worshipping or chanting to a specific deity, then you become absorbed in that deity that you're chanting to. And that's where it becomes more powerful, because, the the deities are super powerful when you chant to them and you lose yourself in their consciousness. It's just super, super powerful. So, yeah, and Tantra, I mean, chanting is not exclusive to Tantra, but the Tantra practices, the traditional Tantra practices, are very dynamic. They one of the ways to sort of define a Tantra practice is that they usually would include multiple modalities. So, like different senses, so sound, visualization, some kind of movement. Sometimes the movement is internal. It's not like a physical movement, but it's an internal movement, like a dynamic, moving visualization, accompanied by some kind of chanting of a mantra. That would be a classic tantra practice, right? So yeah, there's lots of that in tantra, and the chanting itself. I mean, you can do very simple chanting and feel an incredible benefit. Even just just the typical chanting Om. It's just that's one of the most simple mantras. It does something to you. And if my guru used to, he taught me a very simple variation of the Om, and he would chant this before he would give a lecture or a talk. Everybody would chant this, and you just chant it 3 times. And it's not just Om; it's more like Aum. So it kind of it starts as a sort of, with your voice going very low, you sort of go, you make your pitch go down like very low, like that. And when you chant like that, you feel the vibration lower down in your sort of abdomen area. And you take a big deep breath and you start doing that very low. And then as you're exhaling the breath and the sound, you change the pitch and the sound slightly, and it starts to go. It goes a sort of like this, and so you get this. As your mouth changes and as the pitch changes, you feel the vibration in your body moving, and it kind of moves from your abdomen up to your heart, and then it moves up to your throat and into your sort of mouth area. And as you finish on the sort of, you can feel the vibration coming up sort of towards your nose and your forehead area. And we used to do this you do it 3 times, and it's powerful when you do it in a group, obviously. And the first time you do it, it's all a bit kind of cranky and you feel a bit clunky and stuff. And then the second time, it's kind of starting to harmonize a bit. And the third time, you sort of feel like things have harmonized, or like somehow the frequencies have all aligned, or something like that. And I think this is very true. Like, this is a scientific principle of sound, that sound does kind of align things. If you I've seen these videos on YouTube where they've got like a big metal plate, and they put like sand or something on it, and then they you hit it with a tuning fork, those musical tuning forks that vibrate at certain frequencies, and the sand on the metal plate sort of forms into these wonderful geometric patterns, depending on what frequency of sound you're vibrating the metal plate with. So there's definitely science behind this, that when you chant physically, vocally, it's doing something to the cells in your body. It's doing something. I don't know exactly what, but I feel like it's aligning, clearing out knots, and it's kind of making your whole body becoming like a clearer channel and an instrument of divine energy. That's the experience of it.
But it makes sense, because even just on the subjective level, you can feel different parts of your body vibrating according to each sound. And when things vibrate, things kind of move around, and pieces reassemble, and energy that blocked energy or blocked whatever gets unblocked, and you feel kind of this refreshment.
Yeah, absolutely.
I remember I took this meditation class in university, and we would do these different kinds of chants, sometimes with a Z or an M or a B, but often with vowels. And each of these different sounds felt different. They all felt great, and different combinations created different effects. But I was a little disappointed that they didn't teach us, and I didn't ask what each sound was doing. Why, for example, the ah sound is doing this, or the Z is doing this, or whatever. Do you have an idea on like how certain sounds, we can use specific sounds like letters of the alphabet or whatever, vowels and consonants, to create specific effects, say to increase our energy, or to calm us down, or to vibrate this part of the body or that part of the body? Or have you sort of figured out a little bit of that formula?
Well, I don't really know too much about that, but I have come across some things related to that. So I know that in Tantra, different syllables are chanted for the different chakras, and so the chakras affect you, in different ways. They affect aspects of your life, the different chakras. So by chanting different sounds for different chakras is a way of addressing specific issues, or if you have problems in your life, you would choose the appropriate chakra to work with and the appropriate sound that goes with that chakra. And I don't do that myself, so I'm not really an expert on that. I don't know what the correct sounds with the chakras are, but I know that is a part of Tantra teaching. And I've also come across, actually, my partner, she is more into this than I am. She's into neuroeducation. She's a coach and a therapist. She works with trauma. And one of the things that they do in trauma practices is using somatic practices and sound to calm the nervous system. So for people who have had trauma, their nervous system can be very easily triggered by sort of apparently simple things. And so one of the practices that they do is this chanting a sound to calm the nervous system. And sometimes she does it herself, and it's a sort of if I try and recreate it, it sounds like a well, that actually probably, that actually does help. If you can do that, then you certainly will feel better after that. But it is a funny sound of it sounds like a kid playing with a toy car. And let me see if I can. It's a sort of it's a sort of there's a sound like in this part of the mouth,
in the lips,
and then there's also like making your throat vibrate. And this is apparently a technique developed by neuroscientists and therapists who work in that field. So it's very similar, actually, to some of the ancient Sanskrit sounds that they chant. So I mean, all I can basically do to answer your question, really, I don't know a lot about that, but I do know that specialists do work with sound for helping patients, clinical patients, and trauma patients.
Yeah. Actually, after I was listening to your podcast, you're kind of this proponent of making more sounds. It seems like not just chanting, but just during sex, during exercise, during walking, etc. After that, I went to the hot spring, and I was like, normally I would go into the water and just be like, it would feel really good, and I would feel sort of this energy being released from me, but I would kind of hold it in. I wouldn't let it out through my mouth, at least. But then after listening to your podcast, I was like, let's embrace this. Let's just freaking go all out. And I'd be in the water, and like, as the water was kind of like washing over me, or the temperature was changing, it's like these sounds were just kind of coming out of me beyond my conscious control, because I kind of just let it go, and I was like, oh, just basically you're kind of moaning and stuff.
Yeah.
And I felt like more immersed in the water. I felt more happy. I felt just more connected to the whole experience. And then as I listened in, there's like other dudes started doing the same thing. Oh. I don't know if it's like one of those birds of a feather bathe together kind of places, or if I was sort of opening up the portal. Yeah. My point here is, in the modern world, it seems as we're walking through the street, say you're listening to music, you want to sing, but you're not singing because it's weird, or you're having sex and you're like, you're just kind of like, you're not even doing nothing. Your mouth is closed, especially men.
Yeah, especially men. That's very typical for men.
And say like you're swimming in the water. Like, why not moan or whatever? Just sing. Kids are pretty good at making sounds. They're almost too good at making sounds. Women seem a bit better than men, but grown men seem to be very quite, and some more than others, and it depends on the culture. What is the problem with the current state of sound production from people these days, especially men, and what can we do to? It's very obvious, just make the sounds. But what are your ideas on the current status of making sounds?
I think that's a really interesting question, and I think it's actually quite a complex topic. The first thing that comes to my mind, I suppose, on this topic is like, especially for men, right? So, teenagers, growing up, discovering their sexual urges, and then watching porn. So, unfortunately, sadly, for most men, probably our sexual education comes from porn, which, as most of us know, is not very realistic. And often you see in porn, men ejaculating, but not making much noise, maybe just kind of grunting, like whatever. And so as we grow up with that kind of porn as teenagers, we kind of internalize that or integrate that ourselves, thinking like, that's how you make love, that's how you have sex, right? And in addition to that, there's the whole like screwed up way that men and women, but I'm talking specifically about men at the moment, how we're kind of conditioned by society to present this image of being tough and not girly, not making sissy noises, but making manly noises, or not crying and not expressing much real emotions and feelings. And men have a huge pressure of that as they grow up in society. And women obviously have other kind of conditioning that they have to go through.
They got to keep their makeup on and their dress on and all that stuff.
Yeah, I know. It's all this screwed up way that society conditions us. And it's even worse today, I think, because of social media and advertising. But anyway, so when men, have sex or have an orgasm, whatever, it's very typical. I'm aware of this for myself, to just ejaculate. And as you say, just like ejaculate, just go, ugh, or just, or sometimes not even make any sound.
Half the time I'm having sex, like I have to like verbally tell the girl, oh, I came, I'm finished, because she has no idea.
Yeah, exactly. And
she's like, what? When did you do it? I'm like, I just did it.
Yeah, I know. I mean, so many men must have a similar experience. And, it's like as teenagers, so some of us may have been like in our bedroom with watching porn, masturbating, and
you have to be quiet or mom's going to find out.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You have to, if you ejaculate, you got to be super quiet.
You're in the bathroom. They turn on the shower. The shower will muffle some of the noise.
The showers. That's right. That's it.
Yeah.
Exactly. So we're kind of, and in a way, it's almost like it's sort of like a shaming of if you make a noise, then you're going to be embarrassed.
You're hiding it. You have to hide it.
Yeah, you're hiding it, exactly. And it's sad. And the reason it's sad is because when you do eventually realize, or when you learn, or somebody teaches you, or you read something and you experiment and you try see what it's like to make a noise when you orgasm, then you sort of think, oh my God, that was so good. If you do make a noise, if you know, and you can, it's kind of fun to play around with it. You can make, you know, like an animal. You can become like so you can let your dark masculine come out a little bit as like a wild animal, and it's actually really fun. And maybe the first time you do it feels a bit weird, and maybe your partner sort of looks at you and think, oh my God, what are you doing? But
you got to choose the right animal. Not like a pigeon or something.
Yeah, or a peacock.
Oh, this is really turning me on. Dude, people are probably tuning out 2 dudes talking about, you know, jizzing and whatever, masturbating.
Yeah. But it's and like so coming to the sort of why this is good. I think, I mean, I don't know, I'm not an expert on this, but one thing that I would say is that vocalizing and making sound is definitely related to the chakras. So especially the throat chakra.
Yeah.
And the throat chakra relates to that confidence to express yourself, right? To speak, to vocalize, to express your ideas, and to express your authentic self, right? And when we really vocalize, like without inhibition, you know, when you really like let loose with your voice, either by singing or by making some weird noise when you orgasm, you're really opening up that throat chakra, and a sort of energy can flow. And the consequence of that is that you just feel good, right? When that chakra is opened up and the energy flows, you feel great. And by expressing a bit more of your authentic self, you feel freer, you feel liberated, and you feel powerful. So it's certainly, you know, that's part of why it's so good to do that.
No, it feels great. I'm someone who's always kind of making sounds. I'll be walking down the street, like doing my boom, ba-doom, boom, bum, bum. Like, oh, what song is that? Oh, what? Oh, what? Oh, oops. That's not a song. Yeah, like I said, in the hot spring, and it does bring more sort of immersion into life, and it does calm you down. And even from the perspective of the nervous system, when you're vibrating, you know, the throat or exhaling and doing these things like that, you are calming down the nervous system. And it's not just in the neck or whatever. It spreads to the heart, which spreads to the gut, which spreads to your genitals or whatever. It's all like a big chain reaction, probably, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's makes your whole being feel good. You know, it makes your whole being feel good. And it's as you say, it's great to just vocalize whenever, as you said, like when you're just walking down the street, or if you're just, you know, doing some jobs around the house, and you can singing to the radio, and all this kind of stuff is great. And it's something that I am always like trying to work with for myself.
Trying to be more weird.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, why does that have to be weird? I don't want it to be weird. I want to live in a world where people are kind of like, I don't want to live in a musical world. It's like a bit too much. But I prefer to live in that kind of musical world than this one, perhaps. But yeah, something in between, maybe.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, and for people like myself, where I'm naturally a very quiet, kind of quite shy, refined sort of person. I'm not. It's not natural for me to be singing and talking all the time and stuff. So I have to consciously do this. You know, I have to sort of make a little bit of that conscious effort. One of the practices I do, which is really great, is it's like a morning practice where I, in a standing position, I go up on my tiptoes and drop down onto my heels, and it makes like a bit of a jolt through my body. And I kind of do that repeatedly, and at the same time I'm raising my shoulders, and then I let them drop. And when I do that, I vocalize, and I go huh, 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 and I can develop this really like masculine sound, like huh, huh. and I do that a few times, and I it's a great morning practice because it really like sort of wakens up your kundalini energy and frees up your chakras and the channels there, and sort of lets the energy flow. So that's a good one.
I do this one where I will it's kind of off topic, but my little morning thing or before I go to sleep thing is I'll take this breath in. And even though we associate the inhale with sort of increasing our energy and stimulating our nervous system, I feel like it actually it calms me down. Maybe it's all about balance, right? But I'll kind of breathe in real deep, and I'll just like feel it's like the inside, the muscles around my rib cage or the rib cage itself just expanding, and like and I'll make a little sound like that as well. But yeah, sound is going on there, and this actually connects into movement. Voice and sound is really just a type of movement. People are also moving less these days, and it seems like it's really tightly correlated to how much sound we make and how expressive we are in general with our face, with our emotions, with our thoughts. When we, restrict our one side of this movement, whether it's through our face or through our mouth or whatever, we also tend to move less in the other domains. And let's bring this back to sex. It's going to vary from culture to culture. The more expressive cultures do seem to be more mobile in the bed, and the ones that are a bit flat-faced and expressionless tend to carry that into the bedroom. Women seem to have more variation in their movement in sex, but like not in Japan. There's no motion. But then if you get to some more expressive cultures, I don't know, South America, or I imagine Africa, or you're in Spain, probably Spain. Women are probably they're probably moving more, and maybe men are also moving more. But what is the value of unlocking that movement during sex? Not just this thrusting in and out kind of machine thingy, but I don't know. Like I can imagine just like how you're letting your breath loose in the hot spring, or when you're walking down the street or doing dishes or something. If you really let go, you would probably do some weird little movements during sex. I don't know. You're not gonna be like kicking, but you might be like just like twerking in strange ways, and who knows? What are your thoughts on all this movement and sex and movement in general?
Yeah, absolutely. No, absolutely. It's I think I mean when it comes to making love and having sex, movement is such a valuable aspect of it. And in fact, tantric sex involves a lot of movement. And when I say tantric sex, what I really mean is sex that has a bit more the goal of creating more depth and connection, right?
It's about connection.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So it's like I agree with you that I think women generally are more natural with this rather than, as opposed to men. I mean, there are individual differences, but for sure, women seem to be more natural at kind of moving their body a lot more as they're, getting aroused and making love, and men, we tend to be more rigid.
I mean, you can see in the face, look at a woman's face. I'm like, whoa, look, that thing is moving, and my face is like, we're doing it. The job is getting done.
Yeah, exactly. That's it. Exactly. And it's what's going on here is that so women are more natural at kind of moving the energy around their body, the sexual energy, moving it around, and so it creates a lot of pleasure, a lot more pleasure for them. The more they move, the more pleasure they get. The same can apply to men. I think for most men, they don't sort of get that, right? So as you said, we're quite rigid and we're just like grimacing as we're sort of, and for us, for men,
keep plowing forward. Like the women are kind of like riding these ocean waves, kind of surfing on them, letting them kind of flowing with the water, and we're like anchor down, keep go ahead, freaking keep on course, keep on course.
Keep on course. Yeah, the end is in sight. You're not far.
In sight. Yeah, just reach the lighthouse.
That's right. And so what happens with men is that we've sort of, as I mentioned before, we've had this conditioning, the way we've learned about sex from pornography, that our pleasure, our orgasm, is just in the genitals.
That's right.
And that's it. That's where we get our pleasure from. When we orgasm, that's it. And so it's kind of like we don't need to be moving the rest of our body because our pleasure is there in the genitals. And unfortunately, there's more to it than that we, unfortunately, many men don't realize. And when you do realize it, it's fantastic, because this is where we come into tantric sex, where if, as a man, if you sort of move your body a lot more while you're having sex, and you can experiment in different ways, like how to move your body, you're moving the sexual energy around, away from the genitals, and you're bringing the pleasure of the genitals is being spread around, and you start to feel pleasure in other parts of your body. So it can be with movements. It can be like an undulating movement, like a wave, but it can also be things like just sensations, like even sometimes scratching your nails on other parts of your body, on your shoulder or your leg, or getting your partner to sort of touch your feet, and it draws the attention away from the genitals. And when you do that in a state of sexual arousal, you start to get this incredible like tingly pleasure in other parts of your body. And the idea with tantric sex is that by doing that, you can not only prolong your, lovemaking before the ejaculation, but you can actually withhold ejaculation. That is, semen retention. That's one of the ideas for doing tantric sex, is to not ejaculate. And when you do that, the pleasure increases. It increases because the regular sex for men is like maybe one or 2 minutes if you're lucky, and then ejaculate, and
And then depression after that, like, oh God, get out of here! I gotta figure out my life.
That's it. So in you have a bit of pleasure for a minute, 30 seconds, in the moment of ejaculation, like a few seconds of intense pleasure, but with more of a sort of tantric approach to sex, where you're spreading that energy around the body, away from the genitals. You're prolonging the time of being in that sexual arousal. And the more you prolong that time of sexual arousal, the more it intensifies. The level of pleasure gradually goes up over time. So, after 10 minutes, after 20 minutes, it's even more. After 30 minutes, the pleasure is even more. And because the pleasure is spread around the body, you're not about to ejaculate, sort of thing. So it's not like a stressful thing where you're trying to not ejaculate. It's just a relaxed, pleasurable thing that can go on indefinitely, and until you and your partner decide that you're done with the lovemaking. It becomes like you both feel fulfilled and satisfied, even though there may not have been an ejaculation. So it's a different kind of pleasure when you do that. And some people call it the full body orgasm. Like it's and it's kind of where we define orgasm slightly differently in that context. It's not orgasm in the sense of a brief explosion of intense pleasure. It's orgasm in the sense of this continuous, increasing, building pleasure, and it's just it's like just so delicious that you just want to keep going, kind of thing.
Yeah, when you're talking about this, it reminds me of myself. The less I guess ejaculate is a word, but that equates to usually looking at porn or whatever, jerking off or whatever. People are like, dude, why? I don't want to listen to this. Two dudes talking about, but
No, I think this conversation can be interesting for men and women. Maybe women want to hear about this.
No, it's great. But like, I've been using this kind of what's the word, semen retention, or just no FAP, no porn stuff, or whatever you want to call it. Since I was in university, I found, especially if I had a test coming up, if I had to do some kind of creative work, write an essay or something, definitely. Well, sex wasn't an option, unfortunately. But no porn, no jizzing, whatever. Keep it in there. And I use this for now too. If I want to have like a good experience, I know I'm going to go on like a little trip somewhere, or I want to feel more pleasure in my day. If I want to increase my creativity, say I'm going to write, or I'm going to do a podcast interview or episode or something, I try to like not play with all that stuff down there for like a week or more. And then it's almost like your everyday life, your sort of just normal existence of walking through the street, listening to music, eating some food, whatever. It's all just more pleasurable when you're not constantly busting out loads. I don't know if there's a cutoff point where it's like, okay, now you got to let it rip. You can't keep the freaking waters, keep it all dammed up forever. I don't know. Is that your experience too, where it's like this? We're talking about sex and saying, okay, you're not gonna ejaculate during the sex, or you're gonna prolong it to keep it going longer. I imagine that same energy that you had with your partner kind of just carries off into the ordinary world after she's gone, or you're not together at the moment, and then you reconvene, and it's like the energy never really left. That's how I imagine it, and that's sort of how I experience it. But maybe maybe I do just gotta freaking jerk off more. and even during sex, like I found like my favorite sex is actually like counterintuitively when you just literally you just finish and you don't come. You're just like, okay, we're done. Like it's like a man faking a male fake orgasm or something. I don't know. Because if she's not into that stuff, she's like, what? Why don't you do it? I'm like, oh, I'm good. Yeah. I'm happy. I want to keep it. And then you're not like kicking her out of the house. You're not like getting on your phone afterwards, and you don't have that sort of post coitus kind of low depression or whatever. You just you actually still keep kissing her and hugging her. That's and it. You wanted to be with her still. It's like weirdly this orgasm kind of kills sometimes this vibrancy in life and in connection, not just with your partner but also with the world itself. I don't want to be like it's not anti-sex, it's actually pro-sex, but I don't want to be this anti-orgasm thing. It is a very great experience, but I think we abuse it. We just sort of like, just like the way we're eating hamburgers and watching Netflix, like just never-ending buffet. We're kind of doing the same thing with ejaculation, with orgasm, and it's just not. It's not fun to watch Netflix anymore. It's not fun to eat this hamburger or drink this beer anymore. It's not fun. And when you stop doing it, it's kind of like same with alcohol or something, you know. I mean, you stop drinking, and then you do have that one beer. A couple months later, you're like, "Oh, yeah, this is nice." But actually, the time in between of not drinking was actually happier time. And this same thing goes with this. I'm maybe I'm becoming Mormon again. No, I'm kidding. I'm not.
Yeah. No, I think you share. You've just been sharing a very typical experience for many men when it comes to ejaculating. I think for most men, they don't know because they haven't tried the benefits of semen retention, right? We're used to, we've sort of grown up thinking that the only way of sexual pleasure is to ejaculate, to have that orgasm. And if you suggest that to somebody, to some guy, they might think, "What? You're crazy." But when you try it and you feel the benefits of it, you sort of it's hard to sort of go back to the old way of sex where you just ejaculate in a few moments. Yeah, I mean it's a tricky topic though, because you have to sort of go about it in the right way, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Semen retention is, sexual energy it's very powerful, and you have to kind of treat it with respect. You certainly shouldn't repress or block sexual energy. That's the worst thing to do. So semen retention in a tantric way is definitely not about blocking or repressing sexual energy. Although it kind of may sound like that because you're not ejaculating, but you're actually taking that sexual arousal and that sexual energy, and you're kind of moving it around your body, and you're feeling the pleasure of it, and you're letting that pleasure express in different ways, sometimes vocalizing, moaning, or moving and writhing, and then also in like transmitting to your partner as well. You sort of transmit to your partner a lot more sort of sensual and loving energy and touch and caresses and eye gazes and things like this. So a lot more of that is being transmitted to your partner than if you're just focused on the feeling of ejaculating. And so you're not by doing it in a tantric way, you're not repressing or blocking. So that's the important thing. If you're just doing it like, sometimes I wonder about some of those old Catholic monasteries where, monks, I've often heard of stories or read in books about like monks who would go to bed with their hands tied behind their back or something like that.
Chastity belts and stuff.
They were. Yeah, exactly. That sort of, there's a sort of a screwed up way of semen retention where you really literally repress the sexual energy. I don't know. I mean, maybe there are some individuals who are very enlightened or spiritual but I think for the average person, that's actually more harmful than anything. If you're trying to just fight against the sexual urge and repress it, ignore it, and kind of thing, then that's probably going to cause more problems than anything. And I think it can be a little bit dangerous doing it just like that. That's why my personal opinion is, we've heard of the no-fap kind of movement.
Yeah.
And I think there's a little bit misguided with some of that no-fap movement, because it's a bit different from a tantric semen retention. It's not, when people say no fap, I'm wondering, like, is it just they're just not touching their penis at all for weeks on end?
Yeah, what exactly is a fap?
What is a fap? So with a tantric semen retention practice, you give your genitals lots of attention. Actually, you're not just like locking them up and never looking at them for months on end. you give your genitals lots of attention, and you because your old boy down there, he needs attention, and we have to give him that attention, otherwise it will cause problems.
He gets greedy sometimes. So you're like, I'll give you a little attention. He's like, no, 5 more minutes. You're like, oh, come on, buddy.
Yeah, exactly. So in a semen retention practice, we do what I call, or as maybe you've heard of it, self-pleasuring. We say self-pleasuring. So it's kind of like, it's masturbation. For a man, it's masturbation. Without going to the point of no return.
That's the best.
Which is the point where you ejaculate. Yeah. So self-pleasuring is just getting yourself aroused, and then being careful not to get too aroused, but getting yourself pleasantly aroused, and then spreading that energy around your body with movement, touch, and also with breathing practices. And then also, if what makes this really tantric is if you're focused on some kind of divine or spiritual aspect. So if you combine it with like meditation, or you combine it with chanting, or you combine it with like a ritual or a worship or a puja, that's where it becomes really, like we could say, tantric, because that energy that you've awoken, that sexual energy, really expands your crown chakra. Like you can do this. I have morning practice. I don't do it every morning, but some mornings I do self-pleasuring followed by some yogic pranayama, where you bring the energy up into your third eye chakra and your crown chakra, and it's just this tremendous experience, this sort of divine consciousness experience. So that's where it's more tantric. So and when you're doing it with your partner, it's a tricky thing in the beginning. I remember when I started doing this with my partner, in the beginning it was quite difficult because she wasn't quite sure about it. Like she didn't like the idea of me not ejaculating. She wanted me to ejaculate. Yeah. And I think a lot of women do. And that is, in a way, that's part of the pleasure of lovemaking. And in the beginning, when I was starting out, I was quite clunky with the whole thing. I was like really straining and struggling to not ejaculate. And so I was, in the beginning, it does start out a bit clunky like that. But with a bit of practice, you kind of start to do it in a much more flowing kind of way, and where it's not like that, because it's a lot more natural and easy. And when your partner kind of starts to get the benefits of it, and the benefits are, that you can do lovemaking for longer, and if you make love, don't ejaculate, and you decide you want to stop, and then afterwards you feel sort of bright and radiant, and full of energy, and your partner also, and the two of you maybe like spending the day, like kind of there's this spark and chemistry going on between you, because that energy is just humming and vibrating. And then you can always just make love again really quickly after. If you ejaculate, for most men, you've got to wait, you've got to recover your energy, you've got to eat and sleep before you get that energy back again.
It's like it's too much of an energy dump. Like when you ejaculate, it's fine, but you can't really control how much you release. And it's like almost like just drop it all. And then you're just like shut down. But you still don't want to be like blocking up the energy, like taping up your mouth and handcuffing yourself. No paints, no crayons for you. You cannot do anything. Just be all like locked up in a cage. Yeah, of course that's no good. Yeah. But it seems like if you sort of close off this one gateway temporarily, the energy, but you still like kind of keep the other ones open, like your mouth, you breathe, your hands, you're writing or painting or something, you're speaking, eye contact. The energy has to kind of move around and actually ultimately release itself out of your body through your hands or your eyes or your mouth or your legs, everything. And that just becomes more vibrant because the energy is just moving in a different direction. And that makes all of that stuff way more better. You feel more connected through your eyes and through your mouth and through your skin and everything.
The thing is that, yes, you do, that energy does express through other ways, right? But energy leaves your system only enough to maintain a kind of healthy balance. Not like when you ejaculate, when pretty much 99% of your energy leaves your system and leaves you feeling depleted, tired.
You're stomping on the seesaw and like flinging things up in the air. Like, okay.
Yeah, that's right. But when you, with a healthy tantric semen retention practice, most of the energy is retained in your whole being.
Yeah.
So you're not feeling depleted and tired and exhausted and depressed and miserable. You're feeling that energy is still in you, and it's buzzing. It makes you alert and focused. It makes you physically stronger, like if you're doing any workouts and things like that. And it makes you able to interact with people in a much sharper way. So the energy serves us in a really beneficial way in all the areas of our life. And when you as a man, when you practice semen retention for a while and you start to experience that benefit, you kind of realize, you sort of think, oh my God, why didn't I ever do this before? Why don't they teach us this stuff at school?
Yeah.
It's like, and it's healthy. As I said, I'm not talking about the unhealthy way of repressing or trying to shut and ignore. It's a healthy way, a tantric way of retaining that energy and channeling that energy into other areas of your life.
Yeah, and some ways we could do this are, I'm imagining kind of eye gazing, maybe chanting together, other things. Can you talk about eye gazing and how we can use this to connect with our partner? And I guess ultimately you're connecting with the divine and reality and it all. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. No, eye gazing is absolutely fantastic practice. And it's. I remember the first time. I think the first time I did it was actually I'd gone to a tantra festival, and that's where I was introduced to that practice of eye gazing. And yeah, I think like on different levels, it's incredible. So like there's one level where you just feel more connected with your partner, right? You know, if you kind of create an environment that is, it can be like a sort of romantic environment, like a nice room where you've got comfortable cushions and blankets, you've got some candles and incense and nice music. So it creates that nice romantic atmosphere. And eye gazing can be part of like other stuff that you're doing, right? Maybe you're doing some massage, or maybe you're just doing some intimate sharing with each other.
Even during sex, you might be, when you look into each other's eyes, that does something.
Yeah, absolutely. That's right. And again, this is in curious thing between men and women is that I think for women, it can be a big turn on when you gaze into her eyes. I think a lot of women need to feel a deep emotional connection with their partner. And a lot of men, when it comes to lovemaking, we often just want to look at her ass or something,
show me your tits,
or her breasts, Exactly. It's like, that's what turns us on,
It's very visual.
Yeah, exactly. We're sort of anatomical.
No, it's fantastic stuff. I must say.
But when you do actually, as a man, you look into your partner's eyes, not only does she feel you, she feels you more present. So she feels you more in her heart. And for many women, that is the way of sexual arousal, like through emotional connection, through a connection of an expansion of their heart, that creates the sexual arousal. For many men, it's kind of the opposite way, where we start with the sexual arousal, but then by moving the energy around, you start then to expand that feeling of connection in your heart. And with eye gazing, it allows you to connect with your partner at a deeper level, and it's much more fulfilling moment. It's not that you have to do that every time, because sometimes it's nice to have a rough, wild quickie on the stairway, for example. but yeah, it's
another one of your morning rituals, huh? Your puja, your modern puja.
Well, I wish. Yeah, but certainly introducing eye gazing in lovemaking, and even not just in lovemaking, even just as you have for couples who need to give more attention to their relationship, you can make it like a date night, and you give time to each other, and part of that can be just to sit quietly and gaze into each other's eyes with music, and it's absolutely beautiful. And then the more, I would say, tantric aspect of it is, again, it's where we bring in the more spiritual element, the more divine aspect, where you and I'll just relate I think my first experience that really struck me and stays in my memory, where I was with it was in a tantra festival. This was before I had a girlfriend, and she, I was with a complete stranger. It was this activity we were doing where you kind of paired up with people that you didn't know them, and so there's a complete stranger, and there was this lovely lady, this lovely woman, and we were doing this eye gazing. You sit down opposite each other, and there's some nice music. And I just remember, I was like, the way to do this is you gaze into one eye, just one, and you don't flick between the two eyes. You just stay fixed on one eye, and you gaze at it. And what first you sort of notice the beauty of that eye, just like the beauty of the colors and the patterns and everything, and in the
iris,
the iris, right, and how amazingly detailed and beautiful it is. And as you kind of getting absorbed in that, you're kind of losing yourself. And again, it's a bit like meditation. You're kind of losing your sense of egoic identity. Your mind is starting to quieten a bit. All the distracting thoughts are starting to sort of subside a little bit as you just focus on the beauty of that eye. And then you kind of move your attention to the black part, the
pupil.
The pupil, yes, the pupil.
I'm teaching you. I'm your little eye anatomy teacher. You want to talk about like extraocular muscles and the retina and the cornea? Can we go there?
Oh wow! Okay, wow. That's
I'm kidding.
Gosh, there you go.
Show off.
Goodness me, there you go. That's
show off. He knows basic knowledge. Go ahead. Yeah. Once you get into the pupil, like the abyss, basically.
That's right, and so then it becomes. My experience with that was like, you connect to something divine there, because it's like, in a way, the iris, it's got all these details and colors, and it's an expression, a very unique expression of that person who's in front of you, right? It's almost like their fingerprint or something. It's their the complexities of their personality, and all the wonderful quirks, things, personality traits are all kind of reflected in that beautiful, detailed, colorful iris. But the pupil is this blank formlessness, and that is the true divinity of the person. So it's almost like that's the divinity that's behind the complexity of their personality, is this formlessness. And as you just gaze into that formlessness, you kind of merge with it, you become one with it, and you realize it's actually the formlessness of Shiva, of God. And from somebody, well, for myself, with my background in Hinduism, for me that was like the lingam, the Shiva lingam, which is an incredibly powerful sacred symbol. It's the formlessness of Shiva. Like before Shiva becomes form, as the image we know of Shiva seated in meditation and stuff, he's this formlessness in the form of a lingam. And that is like the absolute essence of the divinity, the essence behind the universe. And that is what you feel when you gaze into the depths of somebody's eye. You connect with the divinity. You realize that God is looking out of that eye at you, and it's the same God that you are that's looking out of your eye at that person. It's the one and the same.
It's Shiva. It's been a while since my world religions class. Is Shiva, is that sort of a name for God? Are there multiple aspects to this God? What is Shiva, and are there any other sort of names, gods that we need to know about to understand sort of how this reality works?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Well, essentially, Shiva represents the masculine aspect of God, the masculine energy, or that polarity of the divine.
Okay.
And then Shakti is the female or the feminine polarity. So the various different Shaktis, different goddesses. And Shiva, there are other masculine gods as well. In Tantra, Shiva and Shakti are considered to be very important. They're kind of like the divine consciousness, as its true essence, is neither male nor female. It's just kind of divine consciousness.
Yeah.
But then as the universe is created, that divine, that formlessness separates into masculine and feminine.
Mm-hmm.
And through that masculine and feminine, the universe can be created. So Shiva represents that sort of masculine side. But the formlessness of Shiva is, again, it's really without masculine or feminine, or you could say it's both together. And that to me is what the Shiva Lingam, which is, you see the Shiva Lingam is a kind of a phallic symbol that supposedly represents the penis, but it actually represents more than that. It represents the sort of the formlessness of the masculine energy. And it's just sort of, as you meditate on that, you kind of lose awareness of the world around you. And as you gaze into somebody's eyes, you feel their divinity and you feel that connection with God. And you see the person in front of you as a divine person, not just some woman. It's a divine person expressing in a very unique way. In fact, so unique that it's the only expression in the universe. That person, that woman in front of you, is the only expression, that particular expression of divinity in the universe, because another person is a different expression of that divinity. So it's quite can be a mind-blowing experience when you really get into it.
But the more you talk about this, it seems like vision, the visual sensory world, it can be quite distracting in terms of pulling us away from God or Shiva or real deep connection. We can have our eyes open and be fixated on this external beautiful world, beautiful body, beautiful place. But it seems like it's harder when we look into the blackness of the pupil. It's like we stop focusing on these other shiny objects. When we turn off the lights and we're in pure darkness having sex, you're no longer fixated on the ass and tits and stuff, and you're like connecting to this person on a different level. And even you talked about your morning whack-off sessions. I mean, it's not a whack-off at all. It's the opposite of a whack-off. It's making love with God or something. You were normally when we masturbate, we it's a very visual experience. We are touching ourselves or whatever, but we're imagining some beautiful scene experience, or we're actually looking at it on a screen, and we're focused on that thing we can see visually. But what you were doing in your little sessions is you're focusing on some energy or some God or something. You're jerking off to I like to use these words. I think it's funny. To whack off, beaten off. No, but not to like a naked woman, but it's to some godlike energy or something non-visual. It sounds like. I'm sort of splintering off in a few different directions, but it all does kind of collide into this idea of turning off vision so that we can feel and connect to other things.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's more than one way of doing this. They're all different ways, which all can be a valid way of doing it. Doing it in the darkness is, as you say, I think that's a great way to sort of experiment with and just feel a connection with your partner, lovemaking.
Blindfolded or something.
Yeah. I mean, these are all really great ways to play with that energy and explore that connection with your partner, a sort of a more spiritual connection with your partner. But I would also say that the visual can achieve the same kind of result. Kind of achieve this. I mean, it's actually very tantric to use the senses to take you to God. That's the kind of essence of tantra. In one of the tantra, there's one tantra scripture. I think it's the if I remember rightly, the Tantra Sara. There's this tantra master from about 1,000 years ago, and Abhinava Gupta, his name was, and he talks about this. He talks about how, like, back then when they worshipped God in a tantric way, they would use pleasurable things as part of their worship, things that were pleasing to the senses, like flowers and nice incense, good quality wine as well. Yeah. And the reason why they did that is because when something is nice and beautiful and delicious, it's easy for your mind to become absorbed in that. And so you kind of momentarily you lose the sense of your egoic identity. And basically it's just about being immersed in the present moment. And Eckhart Tolle talks about this, about just being so in the present moment that you kind of become aware of a more like divine consciousness that's at the back of your thoughts. And if you just any pleasurable thing, looking out at nature, looking at a beautiful sunset, just tasting a delicious ice cream or something, for that brief moment, your consciousness is merged with that. It's just in that brief moment, it's one with that.
But the moment is gone so quickly. Oftentimes we just scarf it down. So how it seems like speed, slowness might play a role in here. How do we kind of savor the moment more? You can say, just slow down and just like don't orgasm, in these metaphorical ways. But how do you not let the moment just sort of flash by in a second?
Yeah, well, I think it's basically about practice and training, and you practice wherever you can in any moment you can, right? Where as I said, if you're walking out in nature, if you're enjoying a nice meal, if you're doing anything that you find pleasurable, you're listening to some nice music, or you're reading a nice piece of poetry, or whatever's pleasurable for you, you're just practicing with that. And the more you do it, what I've noticed, what happens is you kind of develop a sort of background sense of awareness of divine consciousness. It's like you can focus in the moment and make a big effort and really feel something and connect. But as you say, it's quite brief because then it's gone. But when you do that repeatedly over time, you kind of just have this sense that all the time in the background there's something, and it's quite, and it's not so difficult for you just to stop for a moment or close your eyes, and you're there. You can feel it, and it develops over time as you're doing it. As you say, you can do that. You can try to prolong moments. You can, if you're eating your food, for example, you can do it more mindfully. You can just slow down a little bit and savor the pleasure of it. You drink a glass of wine, just savor that sip of wine in that moment, rather than kind of chuck it down whilst you're in the middle of talking to someone. And I mean, it's a balance. It's not that you have to do that every time, because we also want to socialize. We do want to talk to other people. Sometimes you go out for a meal with friends, you're not going to ignore them while you eat necessarily. But so you're kind of getting a balance of this as far as possible. Yeah. And when you're lovemaking, definitely it's worth at least sometimes slowing down, really going slowly. I mean, that's the sort of tantric way of lovemaking. But as I say, you don't have to do that every time, because there are different ways to enjoy lovemaking. Sometimes it can be hard and fast,
But maybe it goes back to the same thing about how to not ejaculate during sex is how to not ejaculate during non-sex. I'm guessing. I don't know. I haven't practiced this like you have. But when you're not having these huge spikes, aka orgasm, in the bedroom or out of the bedroom, it's like there is that sort of background, like magic kind of just going on, and it's just there. And I guess there are ways maybe to do that. Maybe you could teach us how to, one, withhold ejaculation. Maybe you're using your breath, or you're squeezing certain parts of your body, or maybe it's just I don't know, how do you do it? It's a practice kind of thing. But I'm guessing we can use these same tactics, maybe, because it's all one life. When we're just walking down the street or eating that peach, or drinking that wine or something. Not that we're having sex with wines, cups of wine, glasses of wine, and peaches. We could be, but that's probably not recommended. It would likely lead to some kind of bacterial infection or something. But yeah. Well, yeah. So this is a classic sort of 5-paragraph question that I do. But yeah, one, how do we sort of withhold orgasm? And two, what are your thoughts on using the same techniques outside of the bedroom?
Yeah. So I think for men, I'm not sure like the difference between men and women. I can certainly speak from the man's perspective, where when you're self-pleasuring and you're stimulating yourself, you're getting sexual arousal. So yeah, the really important thing is not to stimulate yourself too much, because then you get close to what they call the point of no return. And you can kind of think about this in terms of percentages, like so let's say like ejaculating, pumping it out, let's say that's 100%. Okay. So the point of no return is usually somewhere around 80%, something like that, perhaps. So the idea is to, stimulate yourself and get aroused as much as you comfortably can go towards that 80%. And sometimes, what can happen is that you lose control, and it hits 80%, and then it's kind of out of your control then.
And you think you can pull on the brakes, and you try pulling the brakes, and the car just slams into the tree. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. So in those situations, some people have taught or have recommended you can use certain techniques of pressing on certain points of the body to stop the ejaculation. And I advise strongly against those techniques. I actually did do that myself once, and it worked. The sperm stopped. It didn't come out, but it was very, very uncomfortable. And the rest of the day, I had a lot of...
It was pouring out of your mouth.
Well, it almost could have been. Yeah, I had. Yeah, no, it was horrible. I had pain in my genitals, and it was uncomfortable. So I thought, okay, I'm not going to do that again. And I don't think people should be doing that. So I disagree with teachings who say that you should do that. So I don't bother to do anything like pressing. There is a point. There are some spots where you can press and it will stop the sperm coming out. So I don't do that myself.
But okay, but what can we do? What maybe you don't have an answer. I guess if you had the answer, you could sell these $4,000 books or whatever.
Yeah. No, but well, there are some things you can do to try, like healthy things that you can do. So, for example, if you are getting close to that point of no return, then what I do is stop the arousal, stop the physical contact, and do some pranayama. And you can do simple pranayama. I do different pranayamas.
What is pranayama? Meditation? What is that?
So pranayama is yogic breathing. It's yogic breathing techniques. Yeah, yogic breathing techniques.
Like my knowledge of the eyes is your knowledge of all this Indian kind of stuff. You know much more than
Yeah. Well, it's there are some pranayama techniques really you shouldn't try unless you've got a good teacher to sort of teach them to you. So I won't talk about those, but some simple ones you can do. A simple one is where you squeeze your Kegel, the Kegel muscle. That's the perineum muscle, which is the muscle between the testicles and the anus. There's a muscle down there.
Yeah.
And you squeeze that muscle, and it's a very simple thing, and it's a healthy practice. It's the muscle. If you're not sure what that muscle is, the way to find it is it's the muscle that you would use if you were going to try and stop yourself from peeing. Like if you pee and then you want to stop it, you'd use that Kegel muscle. You'd squeeze it and you'd stop peeing.
Or if you're like hanging towels on your dong and like lifting up the Don't do that.
That's it.
Like when we've all tried these little things, like let's see if I can lift some weights. No, don't lift weights. But like you're like, I don't know, like wait. No, you shouldn't be don't be doing that. I don't know, like something really light, like a I don't know, a little dish rag or something, a clean one.
Yeah. That's right. Yeah, I've seen like pictures of guys like they're actually in India. There are crazy yogis who've like got like piercings on the end of their cock. One. And then they lift like some concrete block on their penis and stuff like that.
Badasses.
No, don't do anything like that. Don't do anything like that. But yes, that's the muscle. That's the one that you tense that muscle. Yeah, and if when you've got an erection, it kind of makes your erection kind of go a little bit up and stronger, doesn't it? That's the muscle.
Yeah, but you don't want to be playing with these erections. You don't want to bust that thing. Yeah.
No, exactly. And actually, what happens is when you're highly aroused and you're close to that point of no return, if you stop your arousal, you squeeze your Kegel muscle and you pull in your abdomen slightly, and you sort of visualize that as you're squeezing the Kegel muscle and then you're squeezing the abdomen and you're gradually squeezing the energy up.
Yeah.
It's, imagine it's like in a
toothpaste or something.
Popsicle.
A popsicle, yeah.
A popsicle, yeah. Toothpaste, yeah, or popsicle.
Like a push pops.
Yeah, exactly. And then you're basically squeezing that energy up, and you visualize, you hold your attention somewhere like your third eye chakra, or your heart chakra, or your crown chakra, one of these upper chakras. And you breathe in, pull in the abdomen, and hold that breath. Visualize the energy coming up to the top there. And for me personally, I only need to do that 3 times. And what happens is my erection will just drop down and the energy will subside. And then I'm good, sort of thing. I think from person to person, it may vary. Some people may find that easier. Some people may find that more difficult. So it's kind of a thing you have to like experiment with yourself to find how to do it. But anyway, that's a simple practice of drawing your energy, the energy of your arousal up to the upper chakras. And for me, I find it's enough, a little bit of self-pleasure for about 10 minutes, maybe, or 15 minutes sometimes. And then I do those pranayama breathing. The erection goes down, the arousal subsides. Sometimes I can continue, get the arousal up again and repeat the whole cycle, if I feel like it. And other times I just, if I've got a busy schedule ahead of me to get on with my work, then I just leave it at that. So yeah, I mean that's one part of the self-pleasure practice. Also, it's also important, is, as we talked about earlier, is to move that energy around your body. So don't just keep it in the genitals. You got to sort of touch, experiment with what works for you, what you find pleasurable. So, you can tickle, scrape your nails on your skin, on your shoulders, on your legs, and if you create physical sensations in other parts of the body, that effectively draws the energy away from the genitals. I sometimes even pinch my nipples.
God, it's disgusting. I don't want to hear that. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, I know. It sounds like it sounds.
It's a thing. This is a culture thing too. Some men have sensitivity in their nipples, and some do not. I don't need to know whether you do or not. But the thing in Japan, a lot of apparently dudes in Japan have quite sensitive nipples. So girls will be like twisting their nipples and sucking on their nipples during sex. They'll be trying to do it to me. I'm like, dude, you don't,
Right.
that's not. It's like that's like you were sucking on my elbow or something. I don't give a crap. Like, why are you sucking on my nipple? That's weird.
Exactly. Yeah. I think, this is the thing. Everybody has a different, works for you in a different way. So as a man, you got to find your experiment and find what works for you, isn't it? And, some things may sound a bit kinky, but when you try them, you might find that it's actually works really well to gets the energy away from the genitals. This is what you're trying to do, right? Get that energy away from the genitals, let it spread around the body. And experiment with movements, stand up and gyrate like as if you're doing a sensual dance, or undulate like a wave. And all this stuff is getting that energy of the arousal moving around. And this is the healthy way to be practicing semen retention, basically.
Yeah, I found that breath, I never think of 2-player breathing pranayama exercises would do anything, and I never really did it intentionally. But there's one partner I was with that I always remember this, of how it's almost like our mouths are having sex or something. You're making out. That's clear. But the breath is like this weird dance with she was breathing, I was breathing, and this energy was flowing almost like through her mouth into my mouth, and my mouth into her mouth, but it's like flowing to the genitals, and it's a whole kind of weird loopy thing going on. But it's almost like by opening up, by connecting the mouth together, I don't know if this is just my little weird experience, but how can we use breathing exercises, like 2-player breathing exercises, not necessarily like your mouths are connected, but in my case it was, and that was like a highly pleasurable experience and a deeply connected sexual experience where I didn't feel like I needed to orgasm as much. I wasn't even focused on the genitals because I was just focused on this. I was just feeling this energy kind of flowing throughout our whole system via our mouth and genitals and everywhere. So the mouth, breath with each other.
Yeah. No, absolutely. No, that's really awesome. I mean, that's a great way to do it. There's this thing in Tantra. Well, it's not really Tantra, to be honest. It's more like what we would call Neo-Tantra. But they call it the microcosmic orbit breath.
Okay, yeah, this is what you got to teach me, because I was just doing it haphazardly. You got to teach me the real way.
Yeah, no, it sounds like you were kind of almost doing it just spontaneously.
I think she was doing it. I was playing along.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's a nice practice. You can do it either just sitting with each other, or you can do it while lovemaking. You just, for example, start off by sitting with opposite each other, and then what happens is you sort of visualize. You're going to visualize a circle of energy flowing between the two of you, and it's sort of like as you breathe in, you're breathing in, so you're taking the energy in through your mouth.
Yeah.
And then you can visualize that energy going down to your genitals, to your penis, and then the energy is going out of your penis towards her vagina, towards her genitals, and you visualize as she breathes in, the energy is coming into her genitals and going up.
Yes.
As she breathes out, it's going out of her mouth, and as you breathe in, it's coming into your mouth. So you can kind of synchronize that breathing.
Exactly.
Like, and it's really fun. It's really nice, and it creates a nice sense of connection with each other, and a kind of quite a sensual, almost erotic sort of connection. Yeah.
It's almost like you could even do it with clothes on. I mean, of course, it's gonna be better if you're like actually inserted and it's connected, like you're physically connected. But like I feel like you can even be like dry humping, or just like kind of not even to that stage, but you can still kind of feel it just by being like just pressed up against each other. I'm like, whoa, this is wild. Am I like a 13-year-old boy who's getting so excited by dry humping? But yeah.
Oh gosh, dry humping, that brings back my memories of being when I was a teenager. No, you can absolutely. I mean, it's a nice practice. You can do that with clothes on. You don't even need to have any kind of sexual contact. You can just be sitting opposite each other and do that, and it's a nice thing. Yeah, and you can also do it as you're making love. You can also be doing it. So it's a nice one. Yeah.
Yeah, I know we've been going out for a couple hours now or something. Can't get enough. No, it's good. That's good.
There's a lot of.
I'm so greedy.
It's going to be a long time for you to edit this, isn't it? To go through all this stuff, though.
Dude, I don't know. I think I might. I think it's mostly fine as is. I'm just going to kind of throw it out there. Another thing I wanted to talk about is, since you've made this Tantra dating site, you must have noticed some problems with the existing dating market. I think we all have felt it. The aftershocks of apps like Tinder and Bumble and stuff. For me, I definitely say it's making me less connected, making dating harder and less connected. It's just made it way worse. So yeah, I'm guessing you probably agree with that. But what are the problems with disclaimer, I'm not trying to bash Tinder and Bumble, do not sue me. But what are some problems with these dating apps, the modern dating, and how is what you're trying to do with your dating website kind of trying to solve some of these problems?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's that's right. So the dating site I created is really it's kind of aimed at people who are interested in Tantra, but really it's for anyone who has a sort of interest in more spiritual or more conscious way of dating. And the reason I created that website was because so before I had a partner, I was doing a lot of online dating myself. And I could probably call myself a veteran of these dating apps. I think I've been on pretty much everything, really. And yeah, as you say, it's just, I found it so difficult to really make any meaningful connections. And I sometimes sort of think that it's especially difficult when you're quite a sort of spiritually awakened kind of person. And you're looking for a bit more of that sort of, conscious, awakened kind of dating. And when you go on to things like Tinder and similar kind of things, it's all based on, this whole swiping thing. it's based on like, what do you see? You for a split second, you see a photo, and on the basis of that, you're supposed to decide yes or no. Like, so it's a very superficial approach, I think, to dating. In addition to that, the whole swiping thing is kind of like a game. It's almost like a video game, and I find that dehumanizes the people that you're looking at. You know, they're not like real living divine beings. They're just like cards on a video game that you're flicking through.
Yeah, you're just shopping for Pokemon cards or something.
Yeah, exactly. It's like online shopping. And then you get this. Then there's this whole thing of what I talk about is this sort of dopamine hit. So when you're swiping and you get a match, you know, and it comes up match, whoa, and then in your brain you've got this thought, wow, this person, she liked me, or she matched with me, wow, and you get this little dopamine buzz. But then in reality, you're like, well, actually, I don't really want to get in touch with her. I'll just keep on swiping, sort of thing. And it's just this whole thing. A lot of times, because the apps like Tinder and so on, they're so easy and accessible. I think in my case, and I'm sure this is true for many people, I used to just go on it when I was bored. You know, I was bored and lonely at home. In the evening, I'd been watching Netflix or something, and I was just like, I'm just so bored. I wish I had a partner. I just pick up Tinder and I just like flick through it. Like I get some of these dopamine hits, and like, oh yeah, that's nice. And then I just get bored of it, and it's just sort of like this basis. This is a very unhealthy basis to start from for trying to attract the partner of your dreams, right? Just that you're bored and lonely and you're going to just get some dopamine hits. That's not the best way.
Yeah, it's basically a dopamine machine, because whenever I notice this, when I'm low on dopamine, say, for example, I'm hungover, or it's late in the evening and I'm all worn out, that's when you start looking for these exogenous sources of it, and you'll get it any way you can. And so, yeah, this is a great, easy way to get it. Well, it's not as easy as it used to be. If you're not tall and perfect and everything, you might not even get the matches. You're just going to go feel even worse.
Yeah. And then, well, that also what you're saying. Then there's also this whole idea about how representative are those profiles, those pictures. Maybe they're photoshopped, maybe they're from like 10 years ago, like, and they're not representative of who that person is now. So trying to actually form a deep and meaningful connection from that basis is really very, very difficult. I mean, I say, yes, it's possible for sure. I wouldn't, I always think if you're on the search for a partner, certainly try every avenue if you've got the energy, but don't wear yourself out and get sick of it. Because you can really wear yourself out, and then you can get really frustrated. And then when you kind of enter the dating scene with that energy of being tired and sick of it all and fed up, and you're not going to attract that compatible partner. The universe is not going to resonate with that vibration and provide you with that deep and meaningful relationship. The way you want to be approaching dating to attract that compatible partner is for you yourself to be in the energy of the kind of person you want to attract. So, you want to be in that energy of being kind of fun and contented with yourself, and kind of that you feel like you've got a sense of purpose in your life, that you've got joy in your life, that you feel maybe some kind of spiritual connection going on in your life. And you've got to be in that kind of energy when you enter the dating scene to be able to attract a compatible partner. And so that's when I was fed up with all these dating apps. And around that time, I was getting into Tantra, and I was realizing that, hey, people who are interested in Tantra, they're many of these people are kind of spiritual people, but they're also kind of sexy and sensual people. I want to meet someone like that. And so I was thinking, wow, how can I meet someone like that? Where do I go to meet someone like that? And I looked online and I couldn't find any kind of tantra dating sites. I found some sort of spiritual dating sites, but they were still a bit of a hit and miss kind of thing. So then I figured, well, I think I'll just create my own. I'm a bit of an entrepreneur. I'm a life coach, and I'm always looking for new ways to develop my career. So I figured, well, I'll create an online dating for tantra, for people who are interested in tantra. And it was also because I was going to some tantra festivals, but I didn't know anyone at the tantra festivals, and I was nervous about going. I was thinking, oh my God, what is this tantra festival? I'm going on my own. I wish I could go with someone, or I wish that there was somebody I knew who was also going. And so the other reason for creating that online dating website is that, I thought, people could maybe meet each other on the website before they go to a tantra festival, so that they, when they go, they kind of know each other there already. So I figured, why not create that? And I created it in a way, my intention was to create it in a way that it's not superficial, where that you don't have this swiping thing that the Tinder does. And also the profiles, they have to have certain information in order to create a profile. One of those things, when you create a profile on that website, it's required that you write an answer to the question, what does tantra mean for you? That's one of the questions on the registration form. And I love that because I'm able to see the answers that people write, and it's so beautiful what people write there. And people write so many different answers to that question, what does tantra mean for you? Some people say things like, it's a deeper connection to myself. Other people say things like, it's about making sexual energy sacred and spiritual, or it's about bringing awareness to all those who I come into contact with. So that there are these really deep, beautiful descriptions on these profiles. And I think that is a huge game changer, really, for online dating, because it makes it a lot easier to meet and connect with people at a much deeper level, and not that superficial level where nothing's going to come of it.
Yeah. I don't think your app is solving this other problem with online dating, but I find that just as pictures don't tell the whole story, words also, written text also do not.
Yeah.
I really wish we can get into some sort of a way of dating where we can just actually talk to each other and be with each other, not have to go through this sort of weird screen doors of you gotta say the right thing, and you gotta express everything through these words, and it's such an obstacle. Yeah, written text as the gateway into communication. Some people are amazing writers, a lot of us are not. But that basically holding the key, these two keys of, one, have a great picture, and two, be a wordsmith who can just really connect to people with your words, and to match with someone who also can do that to a stranger who, in a world where we're not trusting one another because there's so many bad experiences on these apps, and you can always just swipe and find a new one if you don't like this guy. So this is a high pressure environment of you got to be all perfect. But then you can't even really show yourself because you're all gagged up and cuffed up and stuff. All you can do is write some words or post a picture, and then you got to somehow pass the test, pass the interview, and get in. And it's such an obstacle, I find. I don't know how to get around that. Maybe some audio-based dating app, or going back to the good old days of meeting people in the real world. I don't know.
It is. Online dating does have that challenge. I mean, as you say, there's only so far that you're able to feel a connection with someone online. The only way to really, I think, know if that person is for you is by physically sort of being in their presence, sort of meeting them, talking to them, and looking at them and feeling their energy. So it is difficult. One of the intentions I have with You Tantra is to have these to organize or host events, like physical events, or to at least to include information about events, which would be sort of in geolocations, so around the world. So the idea would be that, if you're on that website, you meet someone and they're in a location that's near a specific event, you can kind of coordinate and maybe go to that event together, or sort of meet each other there at that event. And these would be mostly tantra kind of events, tantra workshops or festivals, or not even tantra, but just like spiritual, conscious related events where people can meet each other, make new connections, make new friendships. I really did want to get that, to get people offline, really, for finding somebody compatible, to encourage people to go offline and to meet physically at somewhere in events. And another thing that I'm going to be introducing to the platform is going to be like sort of live online group calls where people can get together. Yeah. Maybe I would facilitate the call and have like some kind of activities, maybe a little bit of teaching as well, and kind of get people to sort of interact. Even though it's online, it's still quite a good way. You can talk to people, you can look in their eyes. I mean, it's only on the camera, but at least you can kind of start to get a sense and start to feel for someone. So that's another thing I'm going to be introducing at some point in the future on this, sort of regular live group calls for people to try and find their match in a way, or even just people who just want to make friends, and not necessarily even for romantic love, but people who just want to make more friends in the tantra scene.
Yeah, well, we talked about a lot of useful things today that are relevant to most people: sex, masturbation, sound, vocalizing, movement. A lot of. It
was quite a hot topic today, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's a pretty steamy, hot topic, indeed. Yes, and it's so much fun that I keep trying to milk it further. Come on, a little bit more, but I can feel the energy of being like dissipating and being okay. Maybe it's time to close it off for now.
Yeah. Was that pun intended, by the way?
Which pun was it?
Milking it further.
Oh yeah, dude, that was definitely unintended. I'm not going to intentionally milk another dude. I mean, no offense to. I mean, if you want to milk dudes, that's cool. It's some people do that. Not my thing. It's also maybe the first time I've actually talked about this kind of stuff with a maybe anybody really, but definitely another man. Men don't talk about this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And this is a unique experience for me. People might be like, "Oh, he's gay." No. Yeah. That's how it's sort of phrased when we were growing up. Is like, if you talk about this stuff with women, you just can't, and then with men, you definitely can't, because that's just like seen as gay or whatever. And I've never like felt a desire to, but now it's like, oh, it's actually kind of nice to share this information together. It's sort of a locked door for a lot of us, and I'm glad you're talking about it, and that I was able to. I did crack a few jokes here and there. It's these topics of sex and masturbation just elicit that sort of adolescent side of ourselves. But this is a new experience for me. Like I said, it might be my very first time to really dig into this stuff, or even talk about it for even 5 minutes. Yeah. Like, be like, "Hey, dude, how's your whack off session yesterday?" Like, what the hell? What do you jerk off to? Oh, how much milk do you got? Come on, man. I had one friend who did. He used to ask these questions. So I'm like, dude, no, I'm good.
Yeah. I mean, it's. I think it's maybe guys would have said stuff, but it would have been in a very sort of offhandish way, like not wanting to get too intimate kind of thing. But I think it's. I feel like there's quite a new movement going on, a new shift in men's work, like a kind of a more awakened kind of man is someone perhaps who is confident enough to get a bit vulnerable, to share a little bit deeper some of their feelings on some of these topics with other men, and to sort of develop a bit more of that kind of sense of brotherhood, sort of healthy connection with other men. I think there's this. I feel a lot more of that is happening these days, which is a great thing.
It does feel nice in a way, because I mean, men don't tend to have deep conversations with one another. In general, we usually just kind of do things. We go out, play some sports, we play some games, we go hunt for girls or something, or we just kind of sit there and grunt and sip on stuff. But this is one of the beautiful things about podcasting is it's allowed me to connect with all kinds of people. But definitely, it's sort of the first time in my life, aside from perhaps university, where I had some friends and some professors who had these conversations with, but now it's like a chance for me to actually connect with other dudes, and old women and old men and all kinds of people. This is fantastic. I'm down.
Yeah, absolutely.
One more story I wanted to share since we're on the topic before we go. I remember listening to one of your episodes, and you're talking about how you would get naked and go off into the forest and masturbate naked in the forest or something. Tell us about that. Tell us about that. What is the value of? I can imagine it must feel nice to be out there in nature. You're connected to nature, and there's something about nudity as well. So I know we were about to close off this conversation. We cracked up in 2 new cans. One is labeled nudity, and 2 is labeled nature. And I guess 3 is merging the 2 together. With a little wank.
Yeah, why not? Let's finish off on a nice hot steamy topic. Yeah. No, absolutely. That's right. No, it's so. I've been on this journey, like the last few years. I've been on this journey of trying to kind of make my own sexuality more spiritual, more tantric. And part of that journey has been to move away from porn. So I was very much like addicted to porn. And I found that most of the time I could only get an erection from porn. And so when I realized that was not good, and I was on this journey with Tantra, one of the things, kind of practices or methods that I used to get me off porn was I was basically exploring ways that I could get turned on, that I could get an erection that didn't involve porn, basically. And I realized that when I'm out somewhere in nature, naked, that I could get turned on and I could get an erection and aroused. And so I used that during that phase where I was really addicted to porn. And it kind of helped me, it sort of weaned me off having to rely on porn to be turned on. And I'm not, I don't know why that worked for me. Maybe that doesn't work for everyone.
It's not available to everyone either. Like, where do you do that legally or appropriately? I don't have such a space.
Yeah, exactly. Obviously, you have to obviously be very careful that you're not, that it's appropriate, that it's not like
you're like beating off in a forest. That's not appropriate.
Yeah, I know you have to be very careful. I mean, I'm very lucky because I live out here, and this little village is close to the mountains, so it's pretty easy to go off in the middle of nowhere in the mountains here. It's beautiful.
Little did you know, the old village granny was out there picking blueberries. She saw.
Yeah, or if it was there's a time of year when all of the village go out on a charity fun run.
Yeah,
and they go up through the forest tracks. No, luckily it wasn't that
tourist season, and everyone's got their cameras ready and stuff. Yeah.
Just to sort of finish off that point, there is that
a pun? You got puns?
I'm going to finish off. Yeah. Yeah. One of the things about, for me, being naked in nature, and also like getting turned on in nature, is
grunting like a bear.
It's a great way. Yeah, well, it's a great way to, like, for me to draw that energy up to my spiritual chakras, because I feel like nature feels so. I feel the presence of God very strongly in nature, and I just feel like nature is this expression of divine, creation. And so to have that feeling of this sort of sexual energy awakening, it's so easy for me just to channel that energy upwards into that sort of expansion of consciousness. So yeah, that was one of the reasons why I do that.
Yeah. And chanting is also a kind of version of this natural energy. I feel like it's sort of tapping into the same force. So it's something we can do to access that when we're trapped inside our stupid walls, anywhere we are.
Yeah.
This was the thing I was sort of most excited about with this episode. I didn't intend on going so deeply into those sexy, hot, steamy topics, but that's, I guess, maybe unconsciously that's where I wanted to go. I just didn't realize it. I thought we were going to talk more about chanting, and I guess that leads to moaning and screaming and stuff. Yeah, but chanting. One more thing I do want to close off on before we go is I do want to squeeze a few more chants out of you. Yeah, like teach us a few more like chants that help tap into energy, help sort of get the energy flowing through our bodies. I know one you used is Hare Om. Talk about that one, and then maybe list a couple others, because I'm greedy. I want more.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I think the Hare Om one is a great one to start with, because it's so simple and it's easy to learn, and well, anyone can do that. It's related to what I'd said earlier in the conversation, that my guru used this one. He taught this one to us, and again, it's about the way that the sound, the way that you pitch your voice, the way that you kind of pronounce the sound in your mouth, generates the vibration, starting lower down in the kind of in the sacral area, in the abdomen. And as you chant on the exhalation, you draw that vibration up your body, up through your chakras, and up to the top of your head. So it's a really, because it's simple, it makes it so powerful. It's easy to do, and it's very, very powerful feeling. So there's that one. And
can you give us like an actual like powerful expression of it?
Yeah, maybe you can do this together, actually, Michael.
Okay.
If you want to join in with me. So okay, so the syllable or syllables is Hare Om.
Yeah.
And I know maybe you're going to think of Harry Potter, but it's not.
Now I am
Harry Potter. Now you are. Yeah, it's the Sanskrit word Hari, and it's written as Hari, and it's a Sanskrit word, and it basically just means like sort of Lord or God, sort of thing. That's basic meaning. So when you chant it, you're going to have your voice pitched low to begin with.
Yeah.
So it's going to start with a ha, like this. You got to take in a really big deep breath, because it's going to be a long, drawn out chant.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe what we can do is I'll do it 3 times.
I want to listen to you do it first. I don't want to mess it up with my rookie version. I will do it, but I want to hear you do it first, and then I'm going to follow you afterwards.
Okay. All right. So shall I do it 3 times, and then after we'll do it. Yeah. Okay. All right.
Yeah. I'll just jump in. Like it's like this, the spinny things in the playground they used to have. You just give spinning, and I'll just like jump onto it while once it starts spinning, which is kind of dangerous, but I think I can leap onto it.
Yeah. No, it's pretty easy to join in. I'll do it a few times. I'll just keep going, maybe 3 or 4 or maybe 5 times until I feel like we've reached a point. Okay, and you can just join in then when you want.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
All right, so taking deep breaths then.
I'm embarrassing myself. Mine's all high pitched. Why is your sounding all solid? It's all low and I can't get down there. I got to practice.
Yeah, I mean it's you go whichever pitch is comfortable because your body obviously is different to mine. So
mine's all squeaky and stuff. It's all howdy I shouldn't judge myself.
But that would
yeah.
That would still work because that works for you. That's your body has its own frequency, right? So the pitch of yours may not need to be as low as the pitch for mine.
But it feels different if you get down low. It's sort of vibrating something different, and it feels like it feels more manly or something. It's like high pitched stuff, like not masculine. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong.
It does, yeah, it does. It does bring out a sort of I suppose you could call it a slightly more masculine energy. Yeah. It does.
It's like your animals. You make those animal sounds. I'm making the peacock or pigeon one. You're like this king cobra, black bear or something. Yeah, at least a tiger. Yeah. So I'll try to work up. Right now I'm currently a hummingbird. I'll work my way up to a sparrow, and ultimately, no, that's good. I shouldn't be judging myself, but I was not impressed. Anyway, what are give us a couple more? Yeah, give us a couple more.
Yeah, gosh, there's so many to choose from. I guess I do like the Shiva mantra. Because I for me personally, I like that as a way of developing or cultivating a more masculine energy.
Yeah,
there's a classic image of Shiva which you may have seen.
I jerk off to it sometimes. No, I'm kidding. Go ahead. No, sorry.
I guess after this, you'll definitely do that.
Do you recommend trying that? I mean,
I tell you what. So I do sometimes self pleasure with images of Kali.
Beat off onto Ganesh statues.
No, not Ganesh, but Kali, because Kali's that image where you can see her breasts, she's quite sexy looking.
Yeah.
But she's also quite fierce looking. So that does appeal to my, sexual nature.
Anyway, my teenager re-emerged. I'll try to suppress him for a few minutes so I can just listen. You were saying about Shiva, the image of Shiva. Yeah.
Yeah, so he's like seated cross-legged in the mountains in the Himalayas, and he's got that look of like being very strong and very muscular, and he's like very calm and focused.
I'm definitely not beating after that. Hell no. Cancel the order.
So yeah, absolutely. I mean, it would certainly be beneficial to beat off to this picture, but we're not going to do that right now. So, all right. So the Shiva chant is, ideally when you chant these mantras, you visualize the image of the deity that you're chanting to.
Like you close your eyes and you visualize it, or
you can do, or if you even have a picture,
okay,
and you can just look at the picture.
Yeah.
So so I'll just give you a quick chant of that. So I'll do it 3 times because the first time the voice is always a little bit gravelly and it needs to sort of find the energy.
Well, mine's gravelly for the first 20 times or so.
So it's a bit more complex, so it's not so easy to just jump in. But anyway, it's nice. It's nice to listen to, even if you don't know how to chant it. And these chants are quite common, so you can find them on the internet. If you want to know the words and everything, anyone can find these. This is the Shiva Gayatri mantra. So I'll chant it 3 times. All right. We're starting off with the Om. Om Triambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushtavardhanam Urvarukamiv Bandhanat Mrityumuksher Mamratat Om Shivaya Namaha. Om Triambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushtavardhanam Urvarukamiv Bandhanat Mrityumuksher Mamratat Om Shivaya Namaha. Om Triambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushtavardhanam Urvarukamiv Bandhanat Mrityumuksher Mamratat Om Shivaya Namaha.
Yeah, that roundabout, that merry-go-round was spinning way too fast. I definitely could not jump on. But it was beautiful, It was like this hummingbird just flapping its wings.
It's very nice. Yeah.
I loved it. But yeah, I couldn't participate.
Just as a disclaimer, I'm not a Sanskrit scholar, so the pronunciation of the Sanskrit, I may not be 100% accurate with it, but my guru always taught us, like with these mantras, the most important thing is not that you pronounce it so precisely correctly. The most important thing is your concentration and the love and devotion that you hold in your heart as you're chanting that. And I can tell from personal experience that, when I chant that, I just, Lord Shiva is here when I'm doing that. And I'm in the Himalayas when I'm chanting that. So for me, that's powerful.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's like earlier I was talking about how I just like walk around the street and dun 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 bum 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 bum. It's making sounds and stuff, or you're making weird writhing movements during sex. Like you don't gotta have it all choreographed perfectly. You don't have to have the perfect pronunciation and everything. Just do your thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
But when you're talking about the Sanskrit, this brings up another point. The Sanskrit language is a bit different than a lot of these other languages like English and Japanese and whatever, where it seems that the words aren't, the meaning of the words, they are important, but there's like this physiological, it's connected to the body. The sounds are connected to parts of your body, which are connected to tapping into the energy of God. And it's like a portal into the the deeper reality or something. It's not just about, spitting out meanings.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, my knowledge of Sanskrit is limited. I haven't really studied it. I've only studied it in relation to the mantras that I chant. But I do know a little bit. What I do know is that Sanskrit was originally developed as a language for expressing very like abstract, esoteric ideas. And as you say, a lot of those ideas are represented as sounds. A lot of spiritual truths are actually expressed as sound. For example, the classic example is the word Om. So it's a Sanskrit word, Om. Now, to try to translate Om into English is almost impossible because, I don't know, people translate it as meaning like the universal sound or the essence of the universe or the vibration of God, or, there's so many different ways that you can translate it that it kind of defies the purpose of to translate it. And what Sanskrit, I think, really was intended is to be experienced. It's just like when I chant the mantras, I'm not thinking of the word for word translation in my head because they're kind of ridiculous. It's things like, I give to you my obeisance. I bow to you. I lower my knee and give you salutations to thee, O Lord, divine high. I'm not like thinking that in my head when I'm chanting the Shiva mantra because Sanskrit doesn't really translate into the modern day languages. So Sanskrit was meant as, different like sounds and phonemes and whatnot, the different auditory sounds.
Yeah, all that linguistic stuff. Yeah. The actual sound itself is not just for expressing meaning. It's more, that's maybe a secondary purpose of it, but it seems to be, it's more like as a direct access into something else.
Exactly. The sounds and the syllables of the Sanskrit language, they evolved or were developed by very enlightened masters, from thousands of years ago. And they were intended to convey, to teach to the students the experience of what those syllables represent. So, for example, the Shiva mantra that I just chanted just now, when I chant that, I experience the sounds and the syllables, as a kind of a spiritual experience. I feel the presence of Shiva.
Wow.
I'm transported to the Himalayas. I can see Shiva's energy and so on. And that's because of the sounds that I'm chanting. Now, if I wanted to teach that to somebody, I wouldn't translate it into English and say, look, here we go. This is what it means. Now you have to study it and try and get... I wouldn't do that. I would simply teach them the same sounds which I chant, and they then go off and chant them, and with their other spiritual practices integrated, would then hopefully experience something similar. I mean, maybe not identical because we're all different, but the sounds would kind of unlock an experience for that person. And I think that's really what Sanskrit was intended to do. It was meant as a kind of a tool or a medium to experience the divine. So it's difficult to translate Sanskrit into English. I mean, there are people who do very well. One of the Tantra Sanskrit scholar who I follow is Christopher Wallace, and anybody who knows about Tantra has probably heard of him. And he is incredible. He translates so well the Sanskrit, and he also has the experience of the mantras themselves. So he's not just a scholar; he's actually using his own experience. But I don't have that level of Sanskrit knowledge. But yeah, I mean, Sanskrit is, even if you don't get the pronunciation perfectly, in my experience, you can still tap into the power that those mantras convey.
That's so interesting. So it's like these words are like little portals into a deeper dimension of reality or something. Whereas where meaning is not just trapped in our prefrontal cortex of words, but it's a fully embodied. The meaning is felt, experienced in our entire body. It's almost like it goes back to this whole thing we're talking about with sex, where we are so focused on the genital region of ejaculation or whatever, feeling good in our pussy or cock or whatever you want to call it. There might be a mixture of the two sometimes. Anyway, but you're so focused on that region for sex. It's almost like for language, we're so focused on this our forehead, basically, the meaning of the words in this linguistic part of our brain. But it seems like what you're saying is with Sanskrit and with these chants, it's not just this cognitive meaning. It's something fully embodied and experienced, and you can't put it into words, which is crazy, but it's so much more. There's so much more potential for expression and meaning.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the thing about like our modern day languages are incredibly limited for transmitting spiritual experience through our language. I mean, it's possible for sure, but nowhere near to that degree that something like Sanskrit can do. Maybe there are other ancient languages that I'm not aware of, but I know that Sanskrit does that way, way better than modern languages. As you say, it's to do with the way the sounds are, the way that our bodies vibrate. And traditionally, Sanskrit was a language that was sung and not spoken. I mean, it evolved into spoken language, like today now they have the different languages in India, and other spin-offs as well, which are spoken languages. But originally it would have been sung. So when the scriptures or the mantras that were written down in their books in Sanskrit, the guru or the teacher would have chanted or sung these to the students, and the students would have learnt them in that way. So it is meant as a very vibrational language where the sound is vibrating in different ways, and that relates to what you experience. As I demonstrated earlier with that Hari Om.
Yeah.
You can chant in a way that kind of brings out that more masculine feeling, that sort of lower, and you can bring that chant up to a higher vibration that brings out a little bit more of a sort of spiritual, elevated feeling. Yeah. So the sounds themselves transmit the experience in that way.
And Hari Om kind of feels, before I was talking about this breathing during sex, this loop of breath and sexual energy going through these two bodies. This Hari Om, in a way, feels a little bit similar. It's a similar kind of thing going on. It's not exactly the same because it's just by yourself. But I imagine if somehow you did Hari Om together, that'd be super weird, like having sex doing Hari Om. But I don't know. I imagine it might be doing something similar. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, with the sort of tantra approach, you combine all of these modalities, chanting, breathing, visualizing.
You're banging on a freaking bowl, wind chimes and
gongs, wind chimes. Yeah, absolutely. So all of these things, with a tantric approach, you're using all of the senses to develop deeper connection with yourself, with your partner, and with the divine.
Yeah. Okay. One last mantra chant, if you can think of one.
One last one. Okay. Yeah. Gosh, so many to choose from. What would I choose? Maybe let's say Ganesh, I think.
Okay.
So all these mantras are usually dedicated to a specific deity, right?
Yeah.
And this is Ganesh. So Ganesh is the typical. Yeah, it's got this sort of elephant head.
Yeah.
He's that guy. He's quite a sort of chubby.
I love the story of how Ganesh got his head. He was like, the story I remember is he was with his mom and they were like in the lake or something, swimming or something. And the dad comes home. And he's like, "What the hell? You're cheating on me." So he chops off his head. And then she's like, "What have you done? What have you done? Look what you've done. You've chopped off your son's head." He's like, "Oh, I thought it was like some other dude." And then she's like, I'll be back. And he's like, "I got to solve this problem. I'm in big trouble." And the wife's like, "You better get him a new head." So he went off and found an elephant head and popped it on him. And it's like, "Okay, we're all good now. We're all good. I'm sorry. I don't know if that's the correct story, but that's how I remember it.
That's pretty much how it goes, as far as I know, as well. Yeah. I love the way you tell it.
Anyway, Ganesh. Let's do Ganesh chant. I don't know if that story was really relevant, but I always love that story.
No, I love the way you tell the story. Actually, it's really good. So Ganesh is like, whether or not you want to believe that story is not really important, but what is important is when you experience the energy of Ganesh, he's a real entity, or he's a real energy. I mean, I don't know if it's historically a real character, but I know that the energy of Ganesh is a real living intelligence, and it's a very beautiful energy. Ganesh has this wonderful energy. He's sort of like a bit chubby and a little bit fat. So he's kind of got this cuddly energy. He's very easy to approach. He's very welcoming, and he kind of has this energy of like wanting you to come close so he can give you a little cuddle. That's his sort of energy. And in addition to that, because he's got this elephant trunk, he's supposedly the elephant trunk is like an elephant trunk is so strong it can move obstacles out the way. So Ganesh is the deity that you kind of ask for help to remove obstacles from your life, or to help you overcome challenges, or to help you overcome inner obstacles. So Ganesh is that energy, and it's this wonderful, lovely, cuddly, approachable energy. So when you chant, you kind of visualize him. When I chant, I try to visualize the different aspects of him: his trunk, his eyes, and his little fat belly, and in doing so, he comes to you as this with this embrace, and it's just beautiful. So that's one reason.
Yeah, he's like this cuddly, motherly, brotherly best friend.
Yeah,
who's just always there for you. And
exactly.
If nothing else is working and everyone else is not having
it,
there's always Ganesh.
That's right. And traditionally, Ganesh is usually the deity that they chant to first before they chant to other deities, because he is meant to be the one who kind of opens the doorway to the other deities. Because some of the other deities are quite fierce and scary, and can be a little bit daunting if you're not used to their energy. So Ganesh sort of helps you.
Let's do a Vishnu chant.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Lord Vishnu, Lord Vishnu.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So Ganesh, you certainly can't go wrong with Ganesh. So I'll chant Ganesh again. I'll do it 3 times, and you can just listen in to his energy. Om Ekadandaya Vidmahi Vakrathundaya Dhimahi Tanno Tundi Prachodyatom Gam Ganapatehi Namaha. Om Ekadandaya Vidmahi Vakrathundaya Dhimahi Tanno Tundi Prachodyatom Gam Ganapatehi Namaha. Om Ekadandaya Vidmahi Vakrathundaya Dhimahi Tanno Tundi Prachodyatom Gam Ganapatehi Namaha. And there's Ganesh.
Dude, I love that. I know I'm supposed to just be quiet and just feel it, but I I have to vocalize my my love for that. That's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah, it's nice. He's present as soon as you're chanting. He's there. He's present. That's nice.
Yeah, that in the way you describe Ganesh, that chant does kind of express that. It feels as, yeah, I don't know. Like I say, you can't even put it into words, and I'm trying to put it into words now. But yeah, it does. I do feel that energy that you were trying to express earlier.
Yeah. It's quite a. On one hand, it's gentle and playful, but on the other hand, it's very strong. It's like he's quite a big, strong guy.
Yeah, little chubby little elephant. Yeah,
chubby with this big trunk. So it's like if you've ever stood close to a real elephant, you see how powerful the trunk is. It's quite impressive.
I mean, he got his head chopped off, and he seemed like he wasn't even a dick about it. He was like, "Oh, it's cool. Yeah, whatever. Things happen."
Yes. Yeah, it's so funny that like these Hindu mythology stories sometimes are really kind of bizarre.
No, it's not connected. These stories are just like, okay, take them, whatever. All right. Yeah, I guess like I could just keep this going forever. But
we could.
Let's finish it off for now. If people want to connect with you, where can they go?
So there's the Tantra online dating website. That's utantra.com. That's UYU Tantra, not UYUO, utantra.com. My website is thetantriclife.com. If anyone wanted to send me a message, you could email me. It would be jamie@thetantriclife.com. What else? Facebook.
Yeah.
I've got a Facebook page. Connect there. That's the Tantric Life Facebook.
MySpace.
Oh my God! That's going back a bit, isn't it?
I'm just joking. But I actually found you. I'm glad that you shared your email. That's how I contacted you. You also have a podcast.
Yep.
You can hear more of these beautiful chants there, and all kinds of ideas. Everything we talked about today, and more, is there. So we got your website, the dating site, your Facebook, your MySpace, your OnlyFans.
Yep. OnlyFans, I forgot that one. Thanks for.
That's your cash cow, man. You can't forget that one.
We got to make money somehow.
You got to make your money, man. OnlyFans.com/Jamie Ananda.
Jamie Ananda, sex freak.
Ananda, sex freak. 69. Come on, okay. You're totally bringing out all my teenage Kundalini, Shiva, Shakti, all that energy. Yes, that's great. I missed that. Not really, but it is fun. Anyway, great chatting. Thank you so much for everything today. This massive, longest podcast for Mike.
I think that's just indicative of the nature of Tantra, really. It's such a huge topic with so many avenues to explore,
It's very fitting because, we're, instead of just orgasming it out in 1 hour, we slow down and connected and let the energy flow. There was no orgasm. There might have been. I'm not going to say.
Prolonging the pleasure.
Well, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it so much.
Me too. That was a pleasure, Michael. Really, really interesting and fun conversation.
Yeah, thank you so much, and keep in touch.
You're welcome. You too.
Peace out.